welcome back to Read Between the Signs. Today we have a really exciting guest. She is a four-time best-selling author. She also has and owns the UK's #1 spirituality podcast and is a manifestation expert. So we are so excited to have Emma Mumford on today. Hi Emma, how are you?
Hi, Emily. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm really, really good. So I've seen online that your new book is coming out on April the 8th, and I'm really excited to know a little bit more about your book.
Yeah, I mean, it's come around so quickly. And as you said, it's my fourth manifestation book as well. And it's a really exciting book, Aligned Abundance, because it's all about turning up your magnetism, releasing the expectations, and aligning with your highest timeline and what you want to manifest into your life.
I
Oh, that
love
sounds
that.
amazing.
Yeah, we're so excited.
Yeah.
And also, I saw that you did your a live event recently for the book release. And how did that all go?
Yeah, really good. It was almost strange because you kind of have to cocoon your book for so long where you can't talk about it. And then, all of a sudden your publisher's like, right, now tell everybody about it. So that was kind of like really the first time that I got to say, here's Aligned Abundance, here's what's in it. And it was just a really fun evening to go through the book's teachings and dip people's toes in. And people got a copy 2 weeks before release as well. So yeah, lots of fun.
I bet that
Yeah, it
was
was
a
really
really
good.
proud moment to be able to finally share that.
Yeah, it was literally just like, oh my God, I've been holding all these
Yeah.
teachings for like 3, 4 years. Take them. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that you've touched on it a little bit before, but wanted to ask a little bit about your personal story, like how you got into it.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to, yeah, know somebody's story and like what led them down this path and how they got here. And I always kind of explain my journey in two parts because although the first part wasn't necessarily spiritual, it's definitely got me to where I am today and is part of my purpose and is part of everything that was meant to unfold. So back in 2012, I was working as a banking manager in a UK bank. Not what I wanted to do, not what I had planned, fell into it by complete accident. And I was in my first not so great relationship at that point. And we very quickly had debt collectors showing up at the door once we'd moved in. And I started to realize that he had all this debt that I had absolutely no awareness of at all. And being the practical Virgo that I am, I was like, don't worry, babes. I'm a banking manager. I can just take out a loan. I get preferential rates. We'll get the bailiffs off our back. It's all good. But as you can probably guess, very quickly after I did that, the relationship broke down. And still to this
Oh
day, he's
no.
not paid a penny of that 7 grand loan. So I was 18, 19 at that point, 7 grand
Wow.
in debt, no fault of my own. Well, apart from taking it on. Um, and it was obviously one of those moments where I thought, what do I do? I was turning up at the bank having panic attacks every morning because I was putting people into debt. I was targeted to put people into debt and I was in debt myself. So it was really triggering and obviously like a really toxic place for me to be that was just not helping me process the breakup and obviously not helping me get out of that debt either.
Yeah,
So
of
I quit my
course.
job, went part-time, got a retail job, completely different to what I was doing, and just worked to really clear that debt and kind of get myself back on my feet. And that's when I found extreme couponing, which is the most random thing ever. And obviously here in the UK back in 2012, it was really taboo. Nobody knew what it was. It wasn't as big
No.
as it is now, definitely not. So I would see the American show and I'd be like, can I do that here? Like this would really help me get out of this debt. I wonder if we can do this here. So I really just challenged myself to find these coupons, find these discounts. And, within 6 months, my friends were coming over and being like, Emma, how the heck are you doing this? Like, you need to share this with people. This is crazy. You're getting all this stuff for free. You've got a spare room stockpile. Like, what is this? So I was really reluctant to set up anything because I was like, well, who am I to do that? Like, who wants to hear from me? We've got Martin Lewis, like all these experts. But after a lot of pestering, I set up a Facebook page, which was called Extreme Couponing and Deals UK. And within like 6 months of setting that up, obviously I did it completely free. It wasn't a business at
Mm.
that time. I got approached by the press. I got nicknamed Coupon Queen. I was presenting on This Morning. It was just wild to go from
Wow.
being in the bank 6 months prior, depressed, having panic attacks, being in debt to all of a sudden you're on national TV helping people get out of debt like yourself. So
Mm.
although it's not spiritual, I feel like that was such a big part of my journey and I was clearly meant to do it. to obviously go along what I was meant to go along. So that was 2012. And I ran that business for about 6 years. And in 2016 is when I had my spiritual awakening. So this is when I came across manifestation, the law of attraction. And again, men seem to be the theme of my awakenings in life. I was in my second not so great relationship at this point. And this time is very different. The mental health, the depression, the anxiety had continued throughout all of that period. So it was still there. And I think a lot of people would probably look at my life and think, well, how can you be depressed, Emma? How can you be, sad or anxious? You've got this successful six-figure business at this point. You're doing all these amazing things. Like, how can you be depressed? And yeah, I guess, having a flat, having a partner, having all those things were great. But internally, that deep unfulfillment and the depression was still very much there. It hadn't gone. So at this point, I was really suicidal and I was having suicidal thoughts and really thinking, well, what am I going to do? I've tried therapy, I've tried antidepressants, I've tried all these different things that you're meant to do. And like none of this is helping, none of this is working. So at the end of that, so there was a breakup there as well. And that was when I really just had my almost like come to my knees moment of universe help me. And I don't know what words came, like where those words came from. I actually said, God help me. And a few days later, the law of attraction came into my life. The word kept popping up everywhere. I'd hear it everywhere. And I was like, what is this? Like, what are these people on about? And really just like couponing, when I would look into manifestation, it felt like a remembering. Couponing was a skill, it was a talent. Whereas this was like a remembering of, oh, of course that's how life works. Like, of course that's how I got here and why my life is like this. So very quickly, I saw huge shifts in my life. I remember even like 3, 4 weeks in, waking up and not having anxiety in my stomach every morning, which was huge for me. So people always ask, like, what was the first thing you manifested? And it really was my health because I just wanted to be okay. I just wanted to live. I just wanted to be happy. So for me, that is and always will be my favorite and best and first manifestation. But it just kind of really took off from there. And just like couponing, I was like a year in, and my community were like, "Why aren't you talking about manifesting? You're really good at this." And it felt weird to obviously talk about money saving and manifestation. So eventually, I decided to sell my couponing business in 2018 just because it had outgrown me. It needed a team of people. It got so huge. And also, as much as I will always love a bargain and a coupon and a discount, it is never and will never leave me. I knew that it was time to put my feet on my spiritual path and, advance my teachings, not just to save money, but to make money and to manifest amazing things into your life. So yeah, I've been running this
Yeah.
business since 2018.
Oh
That
wow.
sounds amazing. That is such a lovely inspirational story as well. And just touching on the mental health side of things, do you sometimes still suffer with that, or do you feel like you're at a really good mental space now?
Yeah, so it definitely continued after 2018 and obviously
Mm,
2016 when I had my spiritual awakening. It was only really lockdown 2020 when it really came to a head because obviously in a lot of old school manifestation teachings, there's no mention of inner work. There's no mention of like, healing and all these things. It was just think positive thoughts. And, that's very hard to do when you're in that place when you have those intrusive thoughts. So 2020 is when that inner work really came up for me. And it started off with inner child work and then just kind of like naturally progressed. I would go to different types of therapies, sound healing, past life regressions. I always joke, like I've pretty much done most of the like, as I haven't done ayahuasca or anything, but I've pretty much done everything non-plant medicine in terms of modalities because I wanted to feel good. And yeah, really, I think like so many of us, that inner work came up in lockdown because we finally had the time to address it and look at it. And then obviously from 2021 to 2022 is when I wrote Hurt, Healing, Healed. And that is my inner work journey where I finally, discovered what was causing that depression, getting to the root of it, working to really clear that on all levels. So I definitely think healing is a lifelong journey. I think that, there's always layers. And, even as I turned 30 a couple of years ago, there were more layers that came up that I had no awareness of. So for me, it's been an unfolding rather than like I spiritually awakened and that was it. Like the real work came in a couple of years later.
yeah.
And yeah, will probably still come up even more. But yeah, I do feel in
Yeah.
a really good space. I don't have depression or anxiety anymore, which is so weird to say because I had it for 12 years really. It, really controlled my life and overtook my life. So it was a huge part of my life. So
Yeah.
to be here now and not have that just feels, almost like, but how? But I know because I've done the work and I put the hours in. But yeah, there's so many amazing modalities that can help with that.
Yeah, that makes so much sense as well. Like I can resonate quite a lot to that because I've just started my own spiritual business and I'm always trying more spiritual things out as well because that's what it is. It's like you try and get to the root with spirituality and try and help yourself as much as you can holistically too. I feel like it's really important when you put in the work with things like that. Now, with my business, because I thought, oh, I'm in the spiritual community, oh, this is going to be so loving and a lovely environment and things like that. I end up coming across trolls on social media, and I never thought I would in this sort of industry, but I've experienced it. And I was just wondering, have you ever experienced trolls online? And if you do, sort of, how do you handle it?
I don't think I've ever had someone be like, oh, I think someone actually insulted my left eyebrow once. That's probably as bad as it's got. And I was like, when you don't notice something and then you're like, oh my God. So, like, it's just literally because my left eyebrow is like quite expressive. Like, it was in a YouTube video and it was just like going up and down, and then I couldn't not see it. And I was like, oh
Yeah,
my God. So, anyway, I think someone insulting my left eyebrow is the worst that it has been in terms of like personal insults. But yeah, a lot of the time I get people say, especially when things go mainstream or I do articles or even like ads on social media, people are just like, this is a load of bollocks, or this con woman's out to get you, like manifestations bullshit. So there's like things like that. And obviously you just delete them and you move on because you're like, well, you're not who this is for anyway. If you're not open-minded and like whatever, fine. But yeah, I think YouTube's probably the worst place for it just because like random people will literally be sent your videos. I found it especially with shorts as well. Long
mm,
form videos are fine, but shorts seem to just find men who are definitely not spiritually awakened or interested in this stuff at all.
yeah,
So they're very complimentary of my appearance, but then when they hear what's coming out of my mouth, they're like, shut up, love, or whatever it is. But I just thank them. And I feel like this is my own way of combating it with a little bit of comedy. I'm just like, thanks so much for boosting my video up the algorithm. Thanks for watching. Like, I don't
yeah,
even give the comment any energy. I'm just like, thanks so much for boosting my video up the algorithm. Like, thanks to your view, I'm getting some money for that. Thank you so much. So
exactly. A view's a view at the end of the day, isn't it?
we all need it, right? So I'm just like, thanks for boosting it, babes. It's all good. But yeah, I feel like self-love and self-worth work like really is important with that because it is really hard to just put yourself out there and it is such a vulnerable thing to do. And like you say, when you're in this sphere, you kind of expect just a positive and 99.9% of the time people are so positive in this sphere and you do just attract like-minded people who, wouldn't say those things. But yeah, I think it's when it kind of goes a bit mainstream and people who just don't understand what the heck you're on about are watching things. I think that's when it comes in the most. But, I kind of just see it as well, even if that's just like sparked an inquiry in their mind of, oh, what that woman was saying, I know that I've just insulted her. And like I've said, this is like woo woo crap. But what if actually that does resonate on some levels? So I just think, our content is going to find the people it's meant to. And, it's not our job to, and it's hard because obviously you see the one bad comment versus the 100 positive comments. But I
Mm,
think you just naturally get a thick skin to it where you're just like, this is not even about me. Like, this is about that person. And I can just send them love and send them well, send them on their way and wish them well and thank them for the ad revenue. So that's how I look at it.
yeah, I love
Yeah,
that,
that's a
Emma.
really, yeah, definitely. That is a really, really good way to look at it. I wanted to ask about, like, with someone that's into it, like me, for example, very into like manifestation, law of attraction. Um, but I feel like I'm so busy that I don't find the time to like be able to reflect.
Mm.
How would you like recommend to someone that it has got a very busy life? Like, how would you start out? Just a bit of mindfulness.
Yeah, so I think, you're not alone in that. A lot of people are like, I'm so busy, like I have a million things to do. Like, how do I fit manifestation into my day, into my even like a morning routine? And I think it's not, I always say like manifesting isn't based upon how much you do, it's based upon your energy and your emotions, like your
Okay.
emotional regulation. So the goal with any practice or manifestation as a whole is not to be perfect. It's not like, the people who are manifesting all this mind-blowing abundance are the only people who are sat down every day doing a 20-minute spiritual routine. And if you're not doing that, you're not going to get that success. That is not how it works. It is all about the quality of things that you're doing. So I see people who have incredible daily routines that take them 3 minutes. I see other people who have incredible daily routines that take an hour, and they absolutely adore taking that time for themselves. There's no right or wrong with it. It's what works for you. It's what works for your practice. It's what basically raises your vibration and gives you what you need from that daily practice. So it's just finding those tools and rituals and practices, whether that's meditation, journaling, mindfulness, EFT tapping, pulling yourself an oracle card, even some scripting, like visualization. Like there's so many things you can do, but you don't have to do all of them. I think people think there's this set rule of like, you have to do this, 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 and this. We all have different manifesting superpowers. Like what works for me may not work for everybody else. What works for you may not work for me and everybody else. So it's really just fine tuning your practice to make it fit into your day so that it feels expansive rather than feeling like a chore or like, oh, I have to do this, or oh, I've got to get up and do this daily practice now. But, I talk a lot about the importance of a morning practice just because of how much it sets you up for the day. But I know people in my membership, for example, who have the most thriving evening routine, but wouldn't even have 5 minutes for themselves in the morning. So it's what works for you and what raises your vibration and what brings you closer to your manifestation. And that could be one thing that you do, which could be just gratitude or journaling or something. So it's really just important to like ask yourself, am I doing these things because I have to, or am I doing these things because it actually feels good to? And I think that's always a good place to start.
Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's really helpful as well, because I do feel like some people think I can't start manifestation because I've got too much going on, or
Me.
they forget,
Yes.
yeah, they forget to take time for themselves in their day. And I feel like it is important. I know everyone has different lives, but I feel like taking just even 5 minutes is so helpful for like your your soul. Like it's really soul healing to take those little 5 minutes or however long you need at the end of the day to reflect. I know you just mentioned briefly there, Emma, about EFT, and I actually have here to ask you what actually is EFT,
Yeah, I
and
actually haven't heard of that, so I'd really
yeah,
like to
and
know.
IEMT as well. I'd seen on your Instagram as well. I'd love to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so these are some of the deeper healing modalities that I was telling you about that I kind of really started to see shifts with. And because, I've been working with them for over 10 years now, it just felt natural to go and train in them so that I could help people, have those transformations as well. So emotional freedom technique, or tapping as it's also known, is one of the first things that I trained in, like I want to say 6, 7 years ago now. I don't even remember, but we always joke how much we love Brad Yates on YouTube because he is like the king of EFT and like the best place to get started. He has like thousands of videos at this point. He's been doing this 15 plus years for pretty much every emotion you can think of and everything. So you can tap for releasing negative emotions and also tap for manifestation as well. So what I mean by tapping is tapping certain points on your body, which are meridian points. And these meridian points, I think we have between like 70,000 over our body. It's wild. And by tapping these meridian points, we can release stuck and stagnant energy. And it's pain-free acupuncture. So if you've heard of acupuncture, it's a little bit like that, but instead of needles, you're literally just tapping certain points with your hand, with your body. So tapping these points obviously stimulates those energy centers. It releases, negative, trapped, stuck, stagnant emotions. So anything that's weighing us down, anything that's causing us kind of dysregulation in our body. And we can also tap to change our mindset. So rewiring limiting beliefs and fears, and obviously creating new positive neural pathways in terms of positive beliefs. So he often has videos for like, manifesting money or, having a positive day. So it's not just about releasing, you can also tap for manifesting things as well. And it's honestly one of the best things ever. The first time I did this, I was just sobbing my eyes out because I clearly needed it. And I know a lot of people, the first time they do it, do cry because it's just such a positive emotional release where you just go in maybe feeling quite heavy, quite dense, and you come out and you're like, oh my God, I feel like so light and so good. And I feel like a million times better. So I always say EFT is a great one to do daily. I personally don't recommend it right before bed just because it's quite energetically stimulating. So I always find that I'm quite wired before bed, which you definitely don't want to be when you're trying to go to sleep. But first thing in the morning throughout the day is absolutely fine. And integral eye movement therapy, which is IEMT, which is the other thing you mentioned, works with the eyes. So this is more of a deeper process. People might have also heard of EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And this is more cognitive work for more deep-rooted limiting beliefs and fears, and even trauma work. And EMDR was actually formulated for people with PTSD. So as someone who got diagnosed with PTSD myself, this was life-changing. This is the only thing I would recommend to people for trauma work and PTSD because of how long-lasting and effective it is. Like nothing touched my PTSD until I did IEMT and EMDR. So it's using the eyes with certain eye movements, and you do need to work with a practitioner to do this. It's EFT, something you can do at home, follow Brad's videos really easily, but IEMT is something you need to work with a practitioner for because they're going to guide you through the process. Obviously, make sure you're moving your eyes properly, and obviously anything that comes up to be released, you're in a safe space to obviously work through that. But both really powerful, both change your life in magnificent ways. And the eye movement, especially, I do it at my events. I do it in my retreats. I do it in the membership. We see such big shifts in people just from one round. Because obviously, if I'm working with someone one-to-one doing it, it's very different. We can spend the whole hour doing it. I'm working on their personal beliefs. Whereas when you're in a group, it's not safe to do that. So I normally just do one round to, give them that release and see that shift in their mindset. So yeah, those are the two things I absolutely swear by and that I use in my work all of the time, but just because of how transformational they are and how long lasting people see the results with it as well.
So I know that you do the inner child course. Um, why is it important to like offer this?
So I've offered my inner child joy course for, gosh, 6, 7 years at this point. And again, inner child work was one of the first things that I came across in my journey. And again, I really feel is at the root of all my healing. I've spoken about IEMT, I've spoken about EFT, all of those things 100% contributed, but really at the root of any healing is that inner child work. And so many of us, especially as adults, we feel kind of almost like trapped in like 9 to 5 cycles, life's serious. There's a lot going on in the world. Like life gets heavy, right? And we all miss that childlike magic of just being carefree and, listening to the Spice Girls and, just having that like childlike magic in our life. And inner child work invites that back in. And I would recommend anybody to work with their inner child, if they suspect that there's some inner work there, maybe some limiting beliefs or fears. I believe that the inner critic, the ego, is our inner child. So that negative voice in our head that's saying, who are you to do that? Like, that's not for you. That is our inner child piping up. And a lot of the time, people find their inner critic and ego is almost like, the devil on their shoulder. They want to bash it. They want to swear at it. They want to suppress it. They want to, like, get rid of it. But when we can actually speak to our inner critic and ego with love, like, that's where the big shifts happen. That's where the negative thoughts lose their power and their hold over you. And that's where the big transformations happen. So I always say to people, for 21 days, talk to your inner critic with love and see how that conversation shifts. And the inner child on a cognitive side of things is part of our psyche. So it's that part of us that we will hold forevermore. Throughout our whole life, they will be with us. So we've got to love that part of us. And for me, for someone who didn't have, an incredible childhood because there was trauma involved, working with my inner child has just been so healing because now I have that childlike magic again. And now I'm like, oh, life does get to be joyful. And seeing my inner child go through that healing as well has been so powerful because it's not just my healing, it's her healing too. So yeah, I've got meditations on my YouTube for people who want to get started or learn more about what this is, but it's such a beautiful way into inner work where it's gentle and it gets to be fun. It's not serious. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm very interested in it because I feel like what you said about being self-critical, like very, I find myself just doing it naturally, just,
Mm.
or like, yeah, like always putting myself down and things, and I'm sure a lot of people will do the same.
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's so
I
common.
just, yeah, I thought it was really interesting about the inner child. So
And I think it's so important with the inner child as well, because as we go through life, I feel like a lot of us tend to neglect our inner child a lot,
Mm.
and we forget she's there and she needs healing as well. We go through life and we need healing, but so does she. And I
absolutely.
feel like that course, when I saw that, it really like sparked. I thought that's so beautiful to have such a beautiful service to offer to people, because doing inner work on your inner child, sometimes you just don't know where to start, especially if you've had a lot of trauma. But having something like that is really, really helpful. With your retreats, Emma, what sort of goes down in these? Do you sort of go through the inner child work, or is it a little bit of everything?
Yeah, it depends. It depends what the retreat is. But my Align retreat that I'm doing at the moment in Glastonbury, that is a different theme every year that we do it, but it's based on alignment. So yeah, inner child work sometimes comes into it, but a lot of the time it is emotional freedom technique, IMT, to release alignment blocks and to identify what is keeping us out of alignment, what's keeping us stuck, what is that block between you and your desire. We have a guest come along, so they'll come and do a guest workshop. Last year we had the lovely Bhavani who did a satsang workshop, and this year we've got Lydia doing a somatic dance workshop. So there's always a little bit of a guest element to bring something different into the day. And we're in Glastonbury, which I don't know if you know, it's like one of the most spiritual hubs of the UK. It is the heart chakra of the earth. And I kid you not, I live by nearby. It's so freaking spiritual there. It's hilarious. So it's great. So we're in that energy. We're in the Chalice Well, which is such a beautiful place to be. So we do like rituals around the garden with all the springs and the water and the ley lines there. So it gets pretty spiritual. But yeah, it's a whole mixture of things throughout the day. But basically, my aim is to take those women through coming into alignment with themselves, coming into alignment with their desire, and really doing that deeper inner work to bust those blocks. I want those blocks gone by the end of the day. And that is what happens through so many different modalities. We do a sound bath as well, because sound healing is incredible and amazing, and it's deeply relaxing as well. So it's a little bit of everything, but really they come away, at a different frequency, at a different energy. And more than anything, the one thing I hear from those retreats is just how rewarding it is for them to take time for themselves and to dedicate that day to doing something for themselves, and, meeting like-minded people, making new friends and getting to experience it in person. And obviously there's a ton of meditations throughout the day as well.
Yeah, that must feel amazing. I can't imagine
Yeah,
how
I
that
bet.
feels leaving that sort of event.
I
Oh, you'd feel
know.
like a new woman, I'm sure you would.
Yeah.
Literally.
Now that we know a little bit more about your relationship that you had with money previously, we know now it's not always been positive. But obviously you have changed things around amazingly. How did you shift your mindset around money? Because I'm assuming maybe it wasn't so positive considering the anxiety and depression that came from, the big loan that you took out. How did you sort of shift that to something more positive?
Yeah, so I definitely think money mindset for me personally has been in layers. So I feel like after I cleared the loan, I then had to teach myself that, that maybe wasn't the best decision to make. And I'm going to make better decisions moving forwards around men, around loaning money. Like that's maybe not something I want to repeat. So I think there was a lot of self-worth work there in terms of that particular experience. But interestingly, I never really felt like going into that first business and going into that experience that I had a negative mindset of money. I think I always had a pretty good relationship with money. It was that first instance that really kind of, gave me some lessons there. It gave me some up leveling to do. So when I ran my couponing business, a lot of people ask me, they say, well, surely you would have had to up leveled your mindset from that because you were like saving money, thinking about scrimping, saving, couponing, like surely you've had to up level your mindset to now manifesting money and not needing coupons. And does working with coupons and discounts actually limit your mindset? And I think it's such a good conversation because I think a lot of people think it would. Whereas I actually talk about in Aligned Abundance how I see them as expanders. So, for me, how I've used coupons, discounts, and freebies over the years is to expand me into financial realities that I may not be able to get in right here and right now. So, to give you a really random example of this, say for instance, if I was like, your wealthy woman self, who has the money, who has the job, who it's at that place you want to be, what's one thing that you would have that would make you feel really luxurious or feel like that wealthy woman? And you might say, I have a Dyson Airwrap. And I'll be like, okay, so could you get that token item here and now to embody and start integrating that energy? And you might say, maybe, but that's a little bit of a stretch right here and now. So I'll be like, okay, wait for a sale, get some cash back, use a coupon to get that item now so that you can start to embody that reality. So embodiment is not always spending money. And I don't want to say, you have to spend money to up level yourself and, get into these realities. It's not all about that. Sometimes just going and sitting in a nice bar and having a drink or going into Harrods and buying a coffee is exactly the same as that. But if you can use coupons, discounts, and freebies to expand you into that new reality that you are stepping into and that identity, then why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you do that here and now? So I think there is a lot of power with that. And I feel like that is one part of my mindset I've never had to upgrade because I've always seen it as an expansive mindset. But one thing that I did have to work on in my money journey was probably about 3 years ago when I was actually writing this book around regulation of money and my nervous system. And I'd hit a certain block in my business, which is ironically where my first business got to before I sold it. I was at that income level. And I kept hitting it for about 2 years. And I was like, what's happening here? Like, where's the growth? Like, I'm trying to hit this goal. I've been at this place for 2 years. What's happening? And, I was doing all my usual money block work, EFT, journaling, cognitive work, all of it. And nothing was working. And it was only when I started to really learn about nervous system regulation and, regulation work in terms of manifestation that I realized, oh, okay. So you correlate having more money as more responsibility. And you don't want more responsibility because you have a ton of responsibility already. And that would be, oh my God, too much. And you would not be able to handle that. So my nervous system communicated to my subconscious mind, oh yeah, Emma says she wants to hit that income goal, but no, 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 that's not safe. We're going to keep that as far away from her as possible because that is not safe. She does not want more responsibility. We cannot handle that. So we're going to keep that goal as far away as possible. And Emma's just going to keep thinking that there's a block and why she can't manifest it. So what I ended up having to do was teach my nervous system that it was safe to hold and receive more, that more money did not mean more responsibility, and that actually having that money would help me to hire more staff and help me to have more freedoms that would create more expansiveness in my life. So that was a really big, powerful shift for me because I never really feel like I had a negative relationship with money. But it was interesting how, as the growth ceilings kept going, that my nervous system felt safe to some degree, but then when it got to that point, it was like, oh no, heck no, we're going to keep that away from us. So that was big because that shaped a lot of the teachings in Aligned Abundance, and really blew my mind when I did that regulation work, how quickly it then manifested, because I was like, God, that whole time my nervous system thought that was unsafe, and that's all it was. So yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah, that does sound really interesting. Like how your body can actually reject something.
Mm.
Like I never knew that was actually possible. But in terms of like law of attraction, and like practicality, like how do you balance the spiritual manifestation with like real world action?
Mm. Yeah, and I think some people see manifestation as like spiritual and like connected, and other people don't. It's really
No.
interesting how people perceive it. But for me, obviously, I do see it as spiritual. I do see it as, you know, the universal source, energy, what we're here to embody and achieve. So I do see it as our soul's journey and absolutely spiritual. But Yeah, there would be no manifestation without action, and aligned action is important. We can't just sit on a meditation pillow all day meditating and, hoping that we're going to manifest all of our goals. So, yeah, there is an element of action that needs to happen in the physical to bring it into the physical. That is what that embodiment piece is, and really bringing manifestation into your reality is through alignment, and obviously that aligned action piece. So, it is finding that balance. It's a co-creation process, and you meet the universe 50% of the way, and the universe meets you 50% of the way. So it's not 90-10, it's not 10-90, and it's not about doing it all. I was definitely someone who was like, I'm just going to do it all. It's fine. I'll go 90 universe, you just meet me 10, I'll make it all happen. And I realized very quickly that's not how manifestation works. Whereas you have other people who are sat on the meditation pillow all day and they're like, oh, it's fine, the universe has got it. And they're equally frustrated that it's not manifesting. It's because you've got to have that dance of meeting the universe 50% of the way. So, in terms of what aligned and inspired action is, it's putting yourself in the field of opportunity and possibility. So, if you are wanting to manifest a job, for example, you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to say, hey, here I am. I am ready for that job. And, if you are going to manifest a job, you are going to have to put a CV and resume out. You're going to have to apply for jobs. You're going to have to interview for those jobs, right? So I always use jobs as an example because there's quite a practical element to it. Same as dating or manifesting a relationship. You're going to have to leave your house to meet that person and, meet people. So there is definitely action to manifestation. And I think some people love action or some people stay away from it. And it really, it doesn't have to feel forced. It doesn't have to feel like you're doing everything. It's really just putting yourself in the field of opportunity and possibility to bring that into fruition here in the physical.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
That's amazing. Um, Emma, what are your non-negotiables, spiritual wise, spiritual practice wise? What are your like daily habits to keep your vibration quite high and keep you going?
Spiritual protection, 1,000,000%. It's something that I learned about in 2018, and thank God I did, because I was going through some not great stuff energetically, and it was, lowering my vibration, and it was really hard. And obviously, being in the public eye as well, people are like sending you energy, whether they know it or not. So, yeah, spiritual protection, 100%. I have an energy protection meditation on my YouTube to get people started. But even if someone comes to me and says, Emma, I'm like in a negative household or a negative job, and I've just got people around me who just feel so draining, like you have to protect your energy. Because, if you imagine your aura field, like which is around your body, if you're going out for the day, you are absorbing everything around you. So you're absorbing people's emotions, moods. And when you are a spiritual person or you're on this path, you are going to be more empathic. So you're going to feel that person's emotion. You might go out and come back home and think, God, I just feel like I've really taken on someone's sadness, or I really feel like heavy and I was fine before. So, obviously cleansing your energy is a good thing as well, but protecting it every morning is absolutely a non-negotiable for me. Another thing is gratitude. I know people love it or hate it, but for me, gratitude is an absolutely non-negotiable just because of how important it is in the manifesting process, but also how it makes me feel. It raises my vibration so quickly. And I just feel a bit lost if I don't do it in the morning. I think I've done it for so long that I'm like, if I don't do it, I'm like, oh, I miss my gratitude. And as we know, gratitude attracts more reasons to be grateful into your life, and is a big part of the manifesting piece. So for me, yeah, definitely daily energy protection and gratitude are my biggest go-tos.
I love that. I think it's so important as well.
I've definitely resonate with the when you mentioned about the being an empath. I think we spoke about this before, Emily, where I literally I feel like I just feel everything what everyone feels. Like when people come and talk to me and tell me about how they're feeling, what they're going through, I feel like I can't let it go. I feel like I end up feeling what they're feeling. And even when you performed the Reiki on me before,
Yeah.
I felt like I needed to speak out about something. But I feel like that is because I'm just holding everyone else's energy in me. So I'll definitely start doing some practices to try and release that negativeness out of me.
You have to do that 100%.
Definitely.
I feel like this may sound like a silly question, but when it comes to gratitude, I sometimes feel like, and when I've spoken to people about this as well, I've also heard this that they agree. Sometimes I feel like I've ran out of things to say I'm grateful for. Like I start saying I'm grateful for my electricity. I'm grateful for, to have like all these things because I write so many times I'm grateful, I'm grateful. How do you always find something to find gratitude to?
Yeah, and I hear it a lot as well. And I think I always challenge people to go deeper. If you feel like you're writing the same things day in, day out, go deeper. Challenge yourself to write nothing materialistic. So, I'm grateful for my eyesight. I'm grateful for the clean water running through my home that keeps me alive and well. I'm grateful for the food in my fridge. I'm grateful for the Tesco delivery man delivering it. So for
Yeah.
me, I challenge myself to go deeper with it. And I know that people may think that sounds silly to give thanks for that, but I bet you'd miss it if it wasn't there. I bet you'd miss clean water if you didn't have it. And what a blessing it is to have clean water when so many people in this world don't, for instance. I'm so grateful for the clothes on my back because there are people who would literally give anything to have clothes or the lifestyle that we have. So definitely taking it to those deeper levels is so, so profound and totally people should do as well. But mainly for me, I'm just more intuitive with it. So daily, I would just tune into, what happened yesterday? What really made me feel grateful yesterday? What have I got coming up today that I feel really grateful for? So yeah, sometimes I might repeat stuff, but a lot of the time I don't. And that's because I either go deeper with it or I will give thanks for things that are happening that day or the day before. And it's more topical to how I'm feeling. And I feel like that's more genuine as well. When those things are coming up for you and they're happening now, you feel more of that gratitude because it's more relevant rather than, giving thanks for like Christmas, which is like 3-4 months ago now, right? So,
Yeah.
it's better to give thanks for those things that are happening in your day.
100%. What advice would you give to a 15-year-old Emma?
Ooh. Oh God. She was like
Deep
pretty
question.
rebellious. 15-year-old Emma was rebellious as hell. I would say I would say it's gonna get worse before it gets better, but the better is better than you can ever imagine.
That's
And just be you, like it's all gonna be good. And yeah, like you're gonna help so many people, so be proud.
Oh, that is so
so
lovely.
inspirational.
Yeah, I love that. That's probably the best advice that I would have probably heard as well
Yeah,
today.
definitely. Got a book coming out, like we mentioned, in the beginning. Um, have you got anything like any future projects that you're working on, like workshops, books that we might see for this year?
Not this year, no. I'm
Okay.
getting married, so that is literally the only
Oh no,
project for me after this.
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so that is
Exciting.
the biggest project for me this year. And I've
Yeah.
really given myself spaciousness to enjoy that because it's stressful as hell. Like you got to have the mental capacity to do all of that. But yeah, even, releasing this book and doing that at the same time has definitely been challenging at points, but it feels good. Like I feel like when the book comes out next week, it's like, okay, now I can just focus on everyone enjoying the book. I've got no more pre-order stress or, the build up to it. But yeah, for the rest of the year, we've got the Glastonbury retreat in Glastonbury in August. And I have got something up my sleeve for later in the year. It's me. I can never not work. I can never not do something. Like I'm always like, oh, that idea's come to my head. But no more book writing for probably a year. So I would say the next book would be a couple of years out. Um, and yeah, we'll see what flows. I'm excited in the relaxing and enjoying part of this year to see what ideas and creativity come through.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Well, I'm
Emma, we
excited for
can't
this
wait.
book.
Yeah, we can't wait for all of the amazing things that you're going to be doing this year. We definitely can't wait as well to see amazing wedding pictures. I'm sure it's going to be
Yeah,
amazing because we know
I
you
know.
manifested your proposal. So we can't wait to see the wedding. Thank you so much, Emma, for being on today. You've honestly given the most amazing advice and probably
Yeah,
inspired so many people today.
I know I've definitely learned a lot. So thank
Me
you.
too. 100%. So yeah, we are so happy you've come on today, Emma. Thank you everyone as well who's tuned in today, and we'll see you in our next episode soon. Bye.
Thanks, guys.